Welcome back to Open Line tonight. We are talking with DarKenya Waller, Executive Director of the Legal Aid Society, walking through what the organization does and how it might be able to help you. If you have a civil question tonight related to maybe a civil lawsuit, not a criminal one or a criminal case in the court system, but a civil one, now is your time to call and get your questions answered. How about that? 615-737+ is the number. I want to bring back in DarKenya. We've been talking about a lot of things, but I really want to zero in on the eviction issue that's happening right now. Now that the moratorium on rent and evictions basically is over, what are you seeing through the Legal Aid Society?
Well, what we're seeing is that the courts are now open, and those persons who, have been able to remain in their homes as a result of the eviction moratorium are now having to face the music, if you will. They are having to settle up with landlords who have honestly carried the weight of the pandemic by allowing people to remain in their homes. And so now they are having to actually deal with that. What the eviction moratorium did was not to erase rent, it simply delayed it. It said you don't have to pay it now. And so throughout that moratorium, we have encouraged clients and the community, the public, to pay whatever you can pay. Don't just not pay it because there's a moratorium. Pay whatever you can pay as you go, because it's compounding and it's collecting and aggregating, and eventually it has to be paid. That being said, the federal government has issued several programs to assist families in paying those rents through the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, or ERAP, as you may hear it called. The federal government has basically set aside funds that people can access in order to help pay those back rents. And whether that's in Davidson County, specifically through the Metro Action Commission, or outside of Davidson County through the THDA, the Tennessee Housing and Development Agency, you can access up to 12 months in arrears rental payments and 3 months going forward. So that you can actually remain in your home 3 months going forward. But certainly those evictions are coming to a head at this point, and it's coming fast and furiously.
So I wonder, what are the actual issues that are landing your clients in court when it comes to this issue? Because it sounds like it can be pretty black and white. If you haven't paid the rent, you have to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's primarily that. I mean, it's non-payment of rent. I mean, certainly there are other housing issues which we have, always handled and dealt with, but primarily now it is certainly non-payment of rent. Mm-hmm. And often what the courts are facing when it comes to court is making sure that there is a clear record of what is actually owed. A lot of times those rental agreements aren't very formal. Yeah. And so you're trying to figure out exactly what's owed. But what we have told clients and the public is go to court. The best thing you can do for yourself, the best thing anyone can do for yourself when it comes to an eviction is to show up. Most of the courts are working really hard to have resources available at the courthouse. We are working with the THDA and other agencies to try and do some work outside of the courtroom, trying to do outreach. I know the Metro Action Commission in Davidson County has done an amazing job of trying to do outreach in the community before it gets to the point of the courtroom. But if you have not accessed those or have not had an opportunity, show up. Go to court. The judges are doing what they can to ensure that the landlord gets paid and the tenant has a place to stay. But none of those, solutions are available if you're not there.
I think it's so important that you say that, because it can seem very counterintuitive, and also, as I said before, very intimidating just to go to court and think, oh, maybe if I just don't go, it will go away. But that is certainly not the case when it comes to court cases.
That is not the case. That is not the case. Particularly as it relates to the housing issues that are going on, I will tell you in Davidson County in particular, the Metro Action Commission is there. They actually man the courtrooms. looking for people who are eligible for the funds that they have available. This is money that the government has set aside to help you address the issue. You don't have to, move out prematurely. You don't have to try and, spend all of your savings. Oh gosh, I didn't.
We lost lights there.
Life-saving.
Yes.
But yeah, those entities are there, and not only is Metro Action Commission there in terms of the entity, the courts actually have legal navigators. These are people who, see your case, attach to that case, and hold your hand through the process. They literally walk you through it from beginning to end. And the benefit of all of this is that you don't walk out with an eviction on your record or another eviction on your record, which is huge.
Yeah, it can stop you from getting housing.
Yeah, you can't get housing if you've already gotten an eviction on your record. The best thing you can do, almost think of it like preserving your credit, is preserving your rental history. Don't let that eviction go down, because with these scenarios, the end result is that you don't have an eviction on your record. You don't have an eviction. And again, these are all resources that are available if you show up.
Right.
If you don't show up, you get the eviction and you still owe the debt.
Great information. Let's hop back to the phone lines. Ann is on the line. Good evening, Ann.
Good evening. I've completely forgotten what my question was, which was a civil case, but I'm going to ask a question to your panelist. And when was the last time you sat in the courtroom and tried to assist someone with the process to get those funds? I personally have contact daily with a young lady that has worked with a nonprofit to try and assist people with those funds on a daily basis, that has cried tears weekly for the last year, working with families, trying to get funding, and worked with the Metro Davidson court system to prevent evictions during the moratorium. And I can tell you there were over 800 during the moratorium when we were not supposed to be having any. I can tell you that our judges do not care that they are putting people out on the street when there is no place for them to go, and our mayor has done nothing about it. Yes, maybe he's on the news about our homeless camps, but he's done nothing about the families. There is no place for a family of 4 to walk into without being able to go through the process and an application. Nowhere for a family of 4 to walk in and say, I have nowhere to go, and they can just sit down and rest and have a place to stay without going through an application process. Think about that for a moment, ladies. Nowhere.
That's probably true.
And that's happening every day in the Metro courts today. I know people that are trying to get the funds, and the landlord has to approve it. And if the landlord says, no, I don't want that tenant to get those max funds, then the judge says, sorry, we're going to evict you, ma'am. You don't get those funds that the federal court says are available. I don't care if Joe Biden wants you to get those funds. This landlord says he doesn't want you to get them, so you don't get them, you're going to be evicted. And that's happening Monday through Friday in Davidson County, and it has been for the last 18 months. And our judges are allowing the landlords to do it every day. So go sit in our Metro courts and then say that our judges are doing everything for our families that need these funds, because we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that are not being used, that families need, and that should be being accessed every day that aren't. And I'm sorry to have been on my soapbox, but Carrie asked a question, and that's the reality of what's going on with our families and our evictions in Nashville.
And thank you for calling in. We do appreciate hearing from you. DarKenya, I do want to ask you about what Ann brings up about sometimes what we hope happens is not the reality. of what is happening.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And that, to be honest with you, that's probably going to be the case anytime you're dealing with free resources. It's not going to happen exactly the way, that it was intended. That being said, however, I do want to clarify a few things in terms of, I do want to clarify a few things.
Sure.
One thing to clarify is that, well, let me start here. This is an evolving process. The federal government came down with the ERAP funding, with CARES Act funding, with American Rescue Plan funding. It has been a lot on the governments to try and bring these funds in, set up systems that never existed before, and then implement them. Mm-hmm. It's been a lot on governments to actually make that happen. One would think, oh, the money's there. But then you have to set up the system and then work through the system to make sure all the kinks are worked out. That being said, it's been an evolution from day one to get to where we are. That being said, though, one of the things that has changed since when you may have been in court, the first time or second time, is that particularly in Davidson County, those and with the Metro Action Commission, it does not require the landlord's approval. That would be misinformation at this point, that it requires landlord approval. It did at one point. I'm not suggesting that it didn't, but again, the process is evolving. Every time feedback is coming in, they are trying to make an adjustment based on the feedback that they're receiving, because again, I say we, I'm not a part of the government, but I work with them, but they've never seen this before. They've never had to do this before. And so it is evolving. But I would challenge you to go back to the Metro Action Commission relative to whether or not landlords have to approve that, because that's not the case currently. Additionally, previously, cases would not go through the Housing Resource Diversionary Court. Landlords or others could opt out of that court. That is the specific settlement court that was created in order to help connect the resources to the people showing up to court. It used to be that you could opt out of it. Within the past 2 months, there has been a revision of those policies, and all eviction cases for non-payment of rent now go through that court and have the opportunity to be a part of that connecting. The only reason I bring those scenarios up is it is constantly evolving, honestly. What may have been true 8 months ago, I can guarantee is not true today. And what's true today may very well change in the next 2 months. But again, it's an evolving process of trying to make it more user-friendly to the consumer. That being said, resources are limited. Again, we're a nonprofit. We'd love to be able to represent everyone who walks into that courtroom, but I can tell you that we do not and we cannot, because we don't have that level of resources to be able to assist everyone who asks for our help. And the hardest part of our job is to say that we can't assist. But it is a reality that we have limited resources.
I think you bring up some great points, and hopefully people will hear that if they are going through the process, to at least ask. And even if they don't end up with a lawyer representing them, I can't get this out, maybe they'll end up with information that can actually help, or the newest information that might be able to help. That's what we can hope. Okay, we have to take another quick break. When we come back, Rhonda, I know you're on the line. We will get to you right after this.